Hugo Chavez was not just a president. He was the man who built the system that made Nicolas Maduro possible. Hugo Rafael Chavez Frias was born on July 28, 1954, in the small rural town of Sabaneta, Venezuela. Raised in poverty by his grandmother, Chavez grew up far from the political elite that would later become his main enemy. His parents were school teachers, and discipline shaped his early life. From a young age, Chavez was drawn to authority, uniforms, and hierarchy. He dreamed of becoming a professional baseball player, but the military offered something far more powerful: influence and command. In 1971, Chavez entered the Venezuelan Military Academy. There, he was not just trained as a soldier, he was shaped ideologically. He absorbed nationalist ideas, resentment toward traditional elites, and admiration for strong leaders who ruled without compromise. This was not socialism yet. It was a belief that democracy was inefficient and that power should be concentrated in the hands of one decisive figure. By the early 1990s, Venezuela was collapsing under corruption, inequality, and economic failure. Public trust in democratic institutions was evaporating. Chavez saw opportunity in chaos. On February 4, 1992, he led a military coup attempt against the elected government. The coup failed, and Chavez was arrested. But failure became his greatest weapon. Allowed to speak briefly on national television, Chavez accepted responsibility and ended with two words that would define his future: por ahora, for now. Those words transformed him from a failed rebel into a symbol. He became the face of defiance, the man who dared to challenge the system and promised to return. Chavez spent 2 years in prison. When released in 1994, he did not abandon his hunger for power. He refined it. He understood that tanks were no longer necessary. Elections, courts, and loyalty could achieve the same result with legitimacy attached. In 1998, Hugo Chavez ran for president. He promised dignity to the poor, punishment for corrupt elites, and a complete transformation of the state. He won. That election marked the beginning of the end of Venezuela's traditional democracy. Once in power, Chavez moved quickly. In 1999, he rewrote the Constitution, expanding presidential authority and weakening checks and balances. The military became political. Institutions became loyal. Elections were preserved but controlled. Chavez did not abolish democracy. He hollowed it out from the inside. The 2000s brought high oil prices, and Chavez used that wealth to consolidate power. Massive social programs, free healthcare, housing projects, and subsidies won him deep loyalty among the poor. At the same time, independent institutions eroded. Courts were packed. Media was pressured. Opponents were labeled enemies of the revolution. Chavez ruled through charisma as much as policy. He hosted marathon television broadcasts where he sang, joked, threatened opponents, and blurred the line between the state and himself. The message was simple and constant. Chavez was the revolution, and the revolution was Chavez. Behind the spectacle, the foundations of the country were decaying. Industries were nationalized and mismanaged. Private investment fled. Corruption exploded. Oil revenue replaced economic planning. Loyalty became more important than competence. Chavez governed as if oil money would never end. This is where the Maduro era truly begins. Unlike many strongmen, Chavez prepared a successor. Nicolas Maduro was not a general or an economist. He was loyal. Completely and unquestioningly loyal. That loyalty was his qualification. As Chavez's health deteriorated due to cancer, Continuity became the regime's priority. In his final public appearances, Chávez made his choice clear. If anything happened to him, Maduro was to take over. That decision locked Venezuela into a future without reform. Hugo Chávez died on March 5, 2013. The nation mourned. The system survived. Maduro won the election that followed under conditions designed by Chávez himself. The institutions Chávez had weakened could not stop what came next. The economy collapsed. Inflation spiraled. Repression intensified. Millions fled the country. Maduro did not invent this reality. He inherited it. The true legacy of Hugo Chávez is not a single policy or speech. It is the structure he built. A system where power is centralized, institutions are obedient, and loyalty overrides accountability. Chávez proved that elections can legitimize authoritarianism, that social programs can buy silence, and that a hand-picked successor can inherit unchecked power. The Maduro years are not a deviation from Chávez's vision. They are its continuation. To understand Nicolás Maduro, you must understand Hugo Chávez. And to understand Hugo Chávez, you must understand how revolutions slowly transform into regimes, and how charisma becomes control.